Have you ever wondered where your streetcar goes to sleep at night?
Well, on this trip to Kansas City, we got to find out. My name's Lewis.
I'm Chris.
And this is Transit Tangents. For today's episode, we got to take an exclusive look behind the scenes at the Kansas City Streetcar maintenance facility, as well as talk with their planning and marketing directors about 2 upcoming streetcar extensions that will nearly triple the size of the system in the city. We'll talk about challenges the team has faced along the way, successes with their existing system, and the importance of getting buy-in from the local community. We'll start off by taking a look at their maintenance facility, but we'll go back and forth between our conversation and the tour throughout the episode.
This is the Kite Singleton Yard, so this is a vehicle maintenance facility here, Kansas City Streetcar.
I like the idea they get tucked in at night here at the facility.
Yeah,
they do. They go to sleep, they get their baths,
Yeah, they get their hair done.
Yes, they get dressed.
So we will start out on the mezzanine.
This is the exciting part.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is the most treasured spot in the shop. This is Bay 1, and this provides access to streetcars overhead. We've got ground floor access, and we also have underbody access. So this is super important from a maintenance perspective.
Speaking now is Lauren Krutty, the Director of Operations and Planning for the KC Streetcar Authority.
This has been here since opening. We had bays 1, 2, and 3. And as part of the Main Street extension, we've had to make room for more streetcars to operate more service on the expansion. Mm-hmm. And so we've doubled kind of the size of our shop facility as well as our yard tracks outside, which we can walk you guys through. But this is still the most coveted position in the shop.
Yeah, and we went from 6 streetcars to 14.
Yes.
So when we go through the facility, you'll see why.
Yep.
Wow.
Got it.
And is the addition from 6 to 14 like getting ready for the extension? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for both extensions.
How many did you start with?
Back
You
in the
said
day,
6.
we started with only 4
4,
streetcars, and we quickly were like, yikes.
Okay.
And so we added 2 more.
We were also lucky to have Donna Mandelbaum, who is the Marketing and Communications Director for the Kansas City Streetcar Authority. Donna has been working with the KC Streetcar since it opened in 2016.
Wow.
So we operate 10 to 12 minute service all day, every day we're in service, 365 days a year. And we want to maintain that level of frequency on both extensions. So in order to do that, we needed to expand our fleet, and so thus the increase from 6 vehicles to 14 vehicles.
Very cool.
Yep.
We'll come back to the maintenance facility later in the episode, but the tour was around 40 minutes, which is too long to include here in full. If you want to see the full, uninterrupted tour, it's available now on our Patreon. Let's jump into our conversation with Donna and Lauren. So to kick us off, for folks who are not from Kansas City, do you mind just giving folks an explanation of kind of how the Kansas City Streetcar came to be and what its existing line is today?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So Kansas City, the modern streetcar that we have here in Kansas City, opened in May of 2016. It is a 2.2 mile route in downtown Kansas City. It connects the River Market, City Market area to Union Station and Crown Center area. We probably average about 1.8 million passenger trips a year. So we're definitely clocked over 14 million passenger trips since we opened in 2016. And now we're working on 2 expansions of the streetcar system, one south and one north.
Absolutely. And even for the streetcar just running 2.5 miles today, every time we've been on it, Chris and I have been commenting, being like, from afar, I'm looking at it, I'm like, I wonder if this is going to be something that's like really used and useful or not. And I was like, there are people of doing everything from tourists to people commuting and everything in between every single time we've been on it, regardless of time of day. It's been amazing to see. So.
Yeah, it has been really, really impressive. With the extensions, can you just kind of give us an overview of what those extensions look like and kind of how far along they are?
Yeah, sure. And I think it's important to note, you said how busy and varied our ridership is. Since we opened the streetcar, our downtown residential numbers have steadily increased. I think we're near like 36,000 that are in the heart of downtown. And we've seen over $4 billion in development, private development, public development around the downtown line since 2014. So more people coming back into the heart of the city. And we are working on 2 extensions of the system, one south, which is going to add 3.5 miles from Union Station area at Main and Pershing all the way to 51st and Brookside, which is where our big University of Missouri, Kansas City is. And then we're working on a northern one, which will connect us to our riverfront, which is about a 0.7 mile extension on that.
Yeah. think we'll see, you were talking about, you see all different types of people, different types of trip purposes on the existing line. I do think we'll see our ridership demographic change. We have about a third of our weekday trips are employment based, going to or from work. I anticipate that percentage will increase with the Main Street extension, longer trips, more commute oriented. But I think that's one of the great things about the KC Streetcar. It's all different trip purposes.
Right.
And so we'll continue to see that mix. We'll see more education-based trips with UMKC on the south end of the line, many more students riding. So we're excited to see how it'll change our ridership profile, as well as with more recreational trips, maybe with the Riverfront extension, going to Berkeley Riverfront. It's one of the biggest green spaces in downtown Kansas City. People who want to get out, running along the riverfront, bikes on the riverfront. So I think both bring great additions to the downtown line.
And even the direct connection to the KC Current Stadium too. I mean, it's really encouraging. I know you mentioned already the development that's happened along the existing line. The same thing's happening along the extensions as well, from what we're seeing. So it's been impressive to see, again, for such a compact system that is growing, which is amazing to see it growing, the impact that it's having on the local economy, and for folks to be able to get around easier, for the ability for folks to have options of places to live in town, car free or car light, having a one car household instead of two. Things like this make such a huge difference. So.
I'm actually really curious about public perception too. So you say you've been here pretty much since the beginning, and we didn't know about this when it first started, but I'm sure there must have been at least a little bit of pushback from community. Do you have any good stories of somebody who you've seen their entire perception change?
I do. I have the best story, and I have it documented in video too, if you'd like it. Yes, in the beginning, because we've mentioned that Kansas City is a streetcar city and had been for generations, but people forgot about it. And when this project was being designed and discussed, and the locally preferred route was decided upon, people were like, no one's going to ride this. What's happening here? We like our trucks and our cars and whatnot. We had a business that is still located on our downtown route. It's a family-run business, been there for over 100 years. Biggest naysayer, biggest just adversary about the project.
Basically, people on the line were told, when we put metal rails in, economic development will follow. And I was not a positive guy, but I'm definitely eating crow. Since the streetcar has been put in, economic development followed. And now we're getting numerous people in because they're riding the streetcar, seeing that Michael's Clothing is here, and most of the comments were, hey, we've driven by numerous times, and all of a sudden we're down here riding the streetcar. We're going to go in. And so it's been very, very good.
Complete turnaround. He is a huge fan. It has changed how he markets his business, who his clientele is. He's had to bring in younger styles in his business because he sells suits and fancy clothes like that. And the demographic of people coming into his store changed because of the streetcar, more younger people coming in. And he said it was the best thing for his business.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was not an easy go in the beginning. And we also are in the state of Missouri. We like to say that our name that we say, like, we're the show me state. And so we had to show them. So it was rough. And we thought, oh, who's going to ride it? Maybe an average daily ridership of 2,700 trips. We exceeded that right off the bat. I think we hit our first 1 million passenger trips in the first 5 months of service. Yeah. So I think with the extensions, it's been a little bit easier, even though construction is never fun, but they have something to look at. Like, oh, look at what it's done for downtown, and look how many people use it.
Right, they know that the construction and the wait is worth it, because in the end, what they're going to have is so good.
Yes.
It's more tangible now. They can see it downtown.
And it's more than just tracks in the ground, because when the city built the system, both downtown and to the university, they're upgrading all the water and sewer lines under the ground, which some of them were 100 years old.
Right.
So it's a whole community improvement project, new sidewalks, new green space, more trees.
Crosswalks.
And it's making the road that we're running on even safer. Medians are now in certain sections of Main Street. So it's really something to be proud of. Very excited for everybody to get on board and experience it. But yeah, it was a long road, but I think people like us now.
So we're entering the shop floor, so be mindful of your surroundings, please. There may be active work going on while we're walking through. So this is Bay 1. We have Bay 2, which has the column jacks here. So even though we can get underneath the streetcars here in Bay 1, we oftentimes need to lift up a vehicle on the jacks. That's how we de-truck cars. So you can see the trucks here, or the bogies if you're using European terminology. And we de-truck the cars using the bogie lift table here. And we take trucks off for general maintenance, preventative maintenance, to true wheels, etc. So can never have enough trucks. And yeah, so this one's all taken apart. You've got traction motors off of the bogie, doing regular maintenance here.
And our vehicles have 2 trucks per streetcar.
Correct, 2 trucks per streetcar. We have a 3 modular vehicle, so you've got the 2 end modules and then a center saloon. And the trucks are on the end modules, and then the center saloon is actually just suspended with articulation joints in between the end modules.
And it looks like this facility is pretty purpose-built for this specific configuration of vehicle. So there's no plan right now, like if you were to link two saloons or something, there's no plan to change the vehicles.
Correct. Yeah. All of our cars can be coupled together, and they can operate as a coupled car.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But our infrastructure doesn't accommodate for that. So our station stop platforms aren't long enough to accommodate for that. We have certain locations where like just the block length is limited. And so we've never operated like that for passenger service, but we can operate like that for emergency recovery or anything like that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm curious so your job sounds really fun to me. Like you're involved in the planning aspects of all of this. And while we were doing the tour of the facility, you were talking about doing timetables and all of this sort of stuff. Can you talk about the process of what it's been like on the planning aspect of these extensions and getting ready for the launch, which is not too far away?
Yeah, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes, that people aren't aware of, even in the really early days and like the early planning level where you're thinking, okay, this corridor versus that corridor, and then you're defining a locally preferred alternative that includes maybe the corridor you're running in, the mode type, starting to think about where station stops are going to be located, go through environmental clearance. You've got the whole federal process, right? Just to get to start construction, funding, developing all of that. I mean, there's a huge precursor to just a shovel in the ground. These are really long horizons, 10 plus years for these sorts of projects. But then even once construction starts, there's a lot that goes on with our team behind the scenes, preparing the operations and maintenance team to operate a nearly tripled system. So, it's not just hiring more operators, it's hiring more maintenance staff, technicians. It's learning the new subsystems that are getting installed that differ slightly from the downtown line. It's building new schedules, new timetables, digging into the data to make sure that we have the capacity we need to meet our frequency. It's making sure all of the systems behind the scenes that feed passenger-facing real-time arrival signs, like making sure that's all going to work correctly. And so there's just layers and layers of layers. And this is my dream job, and getting to have a hand in the operations side and the maintenance side and the planning space is just so much fun. And I'm really excited to watch it all come together. We're in the midst of a rail activation phase. And so that's kind of the process of passing the baton from construction to operations. And there's steps within that. And we're finishing the testing phase and we're getting ready for the pre-operations phase.
Right. Yeah, so excited to see the streetcars actually on the line when we were kind of riding around on buses and whatnot throughout the week. It's like, oh, you can see them there. They're getting ready. So,
We're testing. So everything you can see here was part of our original facility. So Bay 1, 2, and 3. So you have pit and mezzanine. You have the jacks position. And then this is our wash bay. So this is where streetcars get a wash. This is also where we wrap cars.
So we do wrap our streetcars in vinyl for special organizations, events. We have a public art program, so every summer one of our streetcars is decorated in art made by a local artist. So yeah, this is where that magic happens in here.
Nice.
Yeah.
We've seen some of them with the sports teams and whatnot
Yes.
on them. Yeah.
Yes, we are a huge supporter of our women's soccer team here, KC Current, and they love the streetcar as well because one of our extensions is going to go
Right to the stadium, right?
Steps away from their stadium in 2026. So, we're going to be rolling out some new stuff with them later this year. So
Yeah, I think just the community interest in the wraps, it's a real testament to Donna's work and the Marketing and Communications Committee, right? They've worked really hard to make sure that we've got the right guidelines in place to make the streetcar a place that people want to have their brand on, but not in like a gimmicky billboardy way. And people get so excited when there's a new wrap. They want to see it out on route. They want to ride that streetcar. They're looking for it. And so it's just a really fun way to engage with the ridership and the community.
That's a big one.
Yeah, and I think back in the day when we were developing what our brand aesthetic would be, our streetcars are just very,
very simple.
Very simple and clean, and it's like the canvas, right?
Yeah.
So you'll see in other cities like Oklahoma City, they have different colors on each streetcar. This, we're like, nope, this is the canvas, and then we're going to add some color to it.
Yeah.
So, but we also like the look of our undressed streetcars too. So, yeah.
So I'm curious, from afar when we were first looking at the streetcar, I was like, I wonder how this runs, given that so much of it is in mixed traffic. Now, I know in the extensions, there is a lot of dedicated space, which is really nice to see. Can you talk about some of the challenges in operating a system that is in mixed traffic, especially when trying to meet your frequencies and whatnot, and kind of things that you all are working on to maybe, if it is an issue, trying to improve it and mitigate it? Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, for me, kind of getting nerdy again, it all goes back to the data. So you got to look at your operations data, right? Where are you seeing congestion? Where are you seeing blockages? One of the best attributes and one of the challenges with rail is that it's fixed guideway, right? So if you have a blockage and mixed traffic, we can't deviate around that. And so we track that data very closely. These sorts of mitigations were already in place before I started, but looking at common locations and saying, okay, why do we continue to have people that are parked over the line here on on-street parking? They're encroaching on the track slab. We can't get around them. And so actually we've had a lot of city and public support to actually just eliminate parking in those locations. So where it's too tight, where it's too narrow, let's just get rid of it. Let's put delineators in place, hopefully long term, bump out curb lines, provide more sidewalk, or restaurant, cafe space, repurpose the extra space of the roadway and just try to eliminate those problems so that they can't exist there.
Right.
So it's just kind of keeping a pulse on that and continuing, like not getting lazy and letting that just happen and not try to fix the problem.
Right.
The congestion is always an issue. Especially we've got a lot of arenas and things downtown. And so you've got these really kind of crunch time demand periods. And that's when we're carrying a lot of riders. And so you really don't want to be stuck in congestion.
It becomes tricky because your ridership is really high, but the congestion is also really high.
Correct.
It's a double whammy of like, if you have one car that's stuck there and all of a sudden you end up with a backup, it becomes an issue. Yeah.
So we track our ridership annually. We know when big events are coming up. We try to deploy additional resources for that. So whether that's just additional streetcars out on route to improve frequency, or whether it's additional manpower on our police department side, or parking enforcement.
That feels like that's the way to
help
be able to
direct
manage it,
and just eliminate any risk and improve reliability.
And to your point too of like being able to build the show me aspect of this, you now it seems like have the public support for this sort of thing. So from the PR side of this, to be able to be like, hey, these 4 parking spaces or whatever are continue to be an issue. I'm imagining that you're probably not getting as much pushback on being like, hey, this is going to improve service by a lot. Like, we're not trying to remove all of the parking here or anything. We just need to clean up this one intersection and whatnot.
Right. In the beginning, when we did that, there was one business on the route that we had to take away some of their parking. And we thought, they're just going to lose their minds. They are used to their customers being a pull up and like going. But after that, yeah, when we had to take some parking away from like near 9th and Main, it's a natural evolution. But I think also when we do the extension, there's going to be a lot of education that's going to be had with the traveling public, not just our riders, but those that are motorists, pedestrians, bicyclists, because they don't know what exclusive lanes are. They don't know what red concrete means and all of that, and they may want to follow us because they're used to following behind us downtown, like, oh, I'm in the streetcar lane. So it's going to be a lot of emphasis on the changes on the extension and how we all have to live together and move together on Main Street.
Right.
That's a big design change from the downtown line to the expansion. So we have about a quarter, give or take, of each expansion that's in fully dedicated guideway. And then for the rest of the alignment, we're trying to implement like kind of semi-exclusive transit lanes. And so it will allow automobiles to take a right turn or to access a driveway along the route. But otherwise, we don't want automobiles traveling in that lane.
Yeah, we see a lot of that where we live in Austin. We have a few like roads that have bus-only lanes, but it's bus-only and right turn, basically.
Exactly.
And it makes it so the buses aren't waiting in line at a stoplight necessarily because folks will be doing their right on red or what, whenever they can kind of get through. But it's improving the speed of the buses along those routes.
And people obey it most of the time.
Yeah. I just want to say it's amazing to see, like, it's so clear how much you all love what you're doing, and I love to see that because I feel like it makes such a difference because everyone we've talked to in Kansas City, whether it's been to talk about the streetcar or anything else, like people mention the streetcar all the time, which is awesome to see. And it's because you have folks who are like really, it's clear you all care so much about it. We need that everywhere.
This is not something that you see every day, even for our on-site maintenance team. So you can see the cab is fully torn apart, right? We're changing out all of our wiring. You think about how quickly technology changes. And so these streetcars were designed originally for the starter line system. We piggybacked on Cincinnati's contract, Cincinnati Streetcars contract. And so these design discussions started happening in like 2012.
2012, yeah.
And so you think about how quickly technology changes, right? We're in 2025. And it's always the electronics that change the fastest. Right. And so we're working to upgrade the subsystems to make them as similar as possible with the new streetcars. Massive undertaking. Yeah. A big part of what's triggering the wiring change is the passenger information system. We call it the PIS. So that is what is the backbone for all of our passenger displays here. So it's telling you the next stop that you're going to be arriving at. It's also the automated audio announcements that correspond with this information. It's also the intercom speaker system with the operators for an emergency intercom with the operator. It's your external head signs. So all of that has to be upgraded. And so it's triggering kind of a complete wiring overhaul of the car.
If people in the community or even outside of Austin. We're not in Austin anymore, Lewis. If people
not
outside
in Kansas anymore.
I did that the other day. That's what he said.
If people outside of Kansas City want to learn more about the KC Streetcar, where can they find out more on socials or where can they check out?
I mean, our website is kcstreetcar.org, but we are on all the socials, even TikTok. So Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of the things. It's at KC Streetcar. So check us out. Keep in the loop on all our happenings for sure.
Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as well as the tour around the maintenance facility, which was amazing. Huge thanks to both of you and the Kansas City Streetcar in general, as well as Kansas City for having us. We've had so many pleasant interactions with folks here. If you haven't liked this video already, please do so. It helps us out quite a bit. If you want to support the show directly, you can do so via our Patreon. If you're listening, you can also rate us on your favorite podcast platform.
If you want any gear like nice sweatshirts, t-shirts, etc., we also have the store.
Yes, so we're not
wearing them today,
unfortunately. So. But without further ado, though, thank you all so much for watching and enjoy the rest of your
Transit Tangents Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm saving that dough. Public transit's where it's at. Watch me go.